Hello guys, so in this video I'll be coding this strategy from this YouTube channel. So it was posted 4 years ago. I'll be trying to code this with MQL5 for MT5. It is claiming to be the most effective MACD strategy for day trading, crypto, forex and stock. Let me quickly explain how this strategy was explained. So he said we should have MACD in this form, right? So to get this MACD, all you need to do is come here and type MACD. So this is the MACD. So now the strategy is all about selling when the crossover between this line, which is the signal line, and the main line. When the signal line is above the main line and they are both above the zero line. So this is the zero line, right? So that is when you should sell, and you should buy when the main line is crossing above the signal line. So that is when you should sell, and they are below the zero line. So this is the zero line, right? So now, not just that, this is just the simple way. So if you go through this video, you will realize that that is what he said in the first few minutes. Then he moved to the advanced version. He said we should note where price have been rejected. Then we should trade on that area. For example, let's say here, you can see here. So in the case when the market moved to this point, so we should be looking to enter a new position. Also, we can consider maybe here, then after doing that, what we should do is we should move down to a lower time frame. He said 2-step. So when you say 2-step, that means this, then this. So you can go for 15 minutes. Then we can go for 15 minutes, and under 15 minutes, you can look out for entry at this point or at this level. Let's assume while we were here and there's a crossover above, so it's a sign to buy. So he said if we had bought here, which is after the crossover, right? Let's say here, we put our stop loss on the nearest swing low. So let's assume this is the swing low, then we should place our take profits. So this will have been a profitable trade, right? So not just that, so where else? Let's assume the market comes to this level and there's a sell crossover, so we can also sell at this point. In conclusion, he is trying to tell us that we should mark out the area of support and resistance from the higher time frame, right? Then we should go down to a lower time frame to look out for MACD crossover between the signal line and the main line. Then we can decide to buy when the market is crossing over at the support line. So that is the strategy. So in the case where you find it hard to understand what I've said so far, so quickly go back to this video and watch through. So let's just go ahead and code this for MT5. So let's get into it. So first off, I'll create my project. So I'll select expert advisor because you are dealing with expert advisor, right? Then I'll give it a name. I'll give it MACD and price action. Okay, so I'll just clear this up. So we need the trade include file. So we say include trade, trade MQH, right? So we call trade, trade, we also need the position info include file. So you can say position info MQH. So we call the class position info p info, right? So now what we need, magic number, right? So we say magic. So I can give it a random magic number, let's say 27226. So I'll say magic number. So this will be the description, right? this will be the description for the in the input setting. So I want the fixed lot size for this 0.01. So I'll say lot size. So you can go ahead and make it a weeks based lot size. So in the main lectures, we created a function that can help us to calculate lot size based on our risk appetite in percentage and their account balance. So now, after that, we need two time frame, right? So we need to specify that, okay, you should be able to select time frame that you want. So we call the first one the low time frame, the low TF. Let me say TF. Then the first one, we can just leave the default to be, let's say, 15 minutes. 15 minutes. So we can say lower time frame. Then we name the other one high time frame, right? But the description will be different. Let's say this, let's leave it at 1 hour. So higher time frame, right? So now the next thing is the stop loss should be for the stop loss for the buy should be the recent swing low, and the stop loss for the sell should be the recent swing high, right? So now sometimes the trade might be too close, the entry price might be too close to the swing low or the swing high. So we want an extra XL. So let's say the stop loss is at a particular, the swing low is at a particular level, then we want an extra so that it will give it more breathing room. And in the case where the user doesn't want an extra, you can always specify 0. So we can just say extra XL. So we can leave it on 0 by default. So we can call it extra stop loss. So using pips, right? Then, right? So now we need the trade comments, right? So we can just say string comment. So we can name it whatever we want. You know what? Let's just say this, so that whenever there is a trade from this EA, we will know that, okay, this particular trade was created by this particular EA, right? So now, what we can do now is we can have setting for our MACD so that the user, in the case where the user is not interested in the default, so the user will be able to adjust the MACD setting without touching the code, or if the user does not have access to the code. So this is the default. So the fast EMA, then we have the slow EMA, which is 26 EMA. So then we have the other one, which is MACD SMA. I think this is also called I don't know, maybe the slowing. So we can say MACD SMA, right? We also need to give applied price, so we can say MACD price, right? So we say price close for the default, so we can say MACD applied price. Okay, applied price. So that is that. So let's go ahead. Later we can add more if we want. So we'll just leave this on empty. So now all we need to do is, since we are expecting MACD, so we can just say undo MACD, right? So how do we determine the support and resistance? So this is the next thing we should be concerned about, because the MACD is already available for us on MetaTrader, so you can easily move ahead with that. Going back to my MetaTrader, what I will propose we do is let's pick up this. You know what? Let's have this, right? So by default, there are some indicators that come with MetaTrader, and one of it is zigzag. So you can find it under indicators and examples. So you can see when you come down here, you can see I have this zigzag, and these are the inputs. So you can just go for the default, then click on OK. So you can see, so it is telling me that at this point, the market rejected at this point as well. In fact, this can also be used for a trend line indicator. So I'll be doing that in the next few videos as well. Can't draw support and resistance for every point. right? So we don't want our chart to be clustered, or we don't want our EA to be confused. So what we'll be doing here, since we are only interested in the support and resistance of the higher time frame, so that makes things easy, right? So let's say this is our higher time frame. So 1 hour. Oops, I wish I can remove this so that it won't get you confused. Okay, good. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to get our data window, right? So let's get our data window. So notice this point. You can see this is still forming. So this is tentative. So this is still forming. So it's not yet finalized. So we should try as much as possible to ignore this in our EA. Then we should only concern ourselves about this resistance and this support. So that means we go through this zigzag, then we pick up this point. So I think this should help. So we pick up this. Oops. So we pick up this, right? So we put it here. Then we have another one. We put it here, right? Then we go ahead to a smaller time frame. So yeah, that means we'll be looking out for RSI crossover at these 2 points, since we already marked this out from our higher time frame. So that is what we'll be doing. So let's quickly get our zigzag, and it is coming from, so it is coming from indicators. We don't need to specify indicators, but we need to specify examples, so that the here we always look into the example folder and search for this particular zigzag. So let's quickly get that done. So I can say zigzag, right? So first thing, we want to set the magic number, right? So now let's go ahead for this. So we can say MACD for this particular symbol, and for what time frame. So we are only interested in that on the lower time frame, right? So now we need to specify that, okay, this fast EMA will be given by the user, and the slow EMA will be given by the user, and this will also be given by the user. Oh, I think it is called signal period, but you can just leave it like that, or we can just go ahead and change this to signal period if you want. So now we can specify this as well, right? Now going back to the zigzag, so it is a costume indicator because there is nothing like zigzag. You can see it's not prompting me, so it is a custom indicator and it must be treated as one. So now we want this on the higher time frame, right? Then what should be the name? So the name will be from, so by default, if it was inside the indicator folder, we would have just specified the name, right? That okay, just go for zigzag EX5. So this would have been what we would specify if it was on the indicator folder itself, but it is inside another folder called examples, right? So now you have to specify that look into a folder called example, then search for this indicator. Now what should be the parameters, because it takes in the parameters, so we can just leave it on default, and if you want you can also have the parameters available to be changed, just like the MACD, so that you have something like maybe the S depth, stuff like that, whatever. So but now I'll just leave it as default, so you can go ahead and change this and make it available to be altered in the input setting. So now let's quickly move forward so that I won't waste our time. I love having my EA logic in a function so that it will be reusable or adjustable. So you know what, I'll just give this a name. I'll just say MACD price action. So now I'll give it an input, which is the symbol I wish to trade. So in the case where you are interested in multi-symbol trading, that will make it things easier. So you know what, I'll make it return an integer. Well, what it will be returning won't really be needed, but this is just to escape some things if something is not right. So now that is that. So the next thing we need to do is we want to check if there's an open trade position, right? So if there's an open position, we go ahead with looking for a new position. So that is what we need to do. And when there is an open position, we do something else. So now we need a function to do that, and the function will return the latest trade index. So we say last order index. So let's quickly create this function. So I'll copy this and put it in our special function. So it will be returning the index. So it is expecting an integer, right? The index is always in an integer form, So now, how do we get the latest position? So instead of having this as order, we can just say position, since we now know the difference between order and position. So you can just put it like this. Oh, you know what? Let me just leave it on default. Let me just leave it like this. But of course, you know that when I say order, I mean position. We need to look through all the open positions. Then we make sure that we are dealing with a position that is of the same symbol or with the chart symbol and of the same magic number with this EA's magic number. So let's quickly do that. So we go with for loop. So we say I equals starting from the total position that is available, but -1. So that means if we have 5 positions, that means if you have one position open on the account, that the index of that position will be 0. If we have 2 positions open on the account, the index of the first one will be 0 and the index of the second one will be 1. So which is why we cannot have access to index 2. And that is why I'm saying whatever the position total is, then -1, that will be our starting point. Else we will have issue. So we can go ahead and say when I is greater or equal to 0, right? Because you are trying to loop from back to the first one so that we get the latest position. So now, what do we do? Like I said, we need to filter. We are only interested in the trade from this particular EA, which is they have the same magic number. Also, trade that have the same symbol with the chart symbol. So first thing, we need to select the position, right? So we can say P info select position by index, right? So we need to select the position by the index. Then we say for the position symbol, if it matches the chart symbol, right, and the position magic number matches the magic number specified on this EA. So you know what? Once everything matches, just return the index. And when nothing matches, return -1. So that is what we mean here. So now that means if the result in this search is equal to -1, meaning there is no open trade for this symbol and by this EA, which is by this magic number. So if there is no open position, we want to look for trade, right? So now, after that, what do you need to do? We can say if there is no open position, maybe you want to set break even or you want to trail or whatever, just leave it as break even. So maybe we work on break even later. So that is what I mean. So now, what else should we do? So what we want to avoid is, we want to avoid trading multiple times on one bar. So let's assume we have a trade on a particular bar and the trade hits stop loss or take profit on that same bar. We don't want to repeat that trade. So we want to make sure that, so let me quickly take this out. So we want to make sure that if the last entry is equal to this last entry will be in form of date time. So let's quickly set that up. So you can just say here, so date time, so by default it will be 0, right? So which is 1970 January 1st So let me put semicolon so that I won't have an error. So now if this same time, if this same time is equal to this current bar time, so we can say this, right? What we want to do is we want to skip trading. So we want to skip trading. So, and once there's a return statement in a function, automatically other things won't be executed, right? So that is what we mean there. So now the next thing we need to do is we need to get the support and resistance. So now, and as we concluded, we'll be using zigzag. So one of the things we need to get is we need to get that bar that the high or the low is considered. So we can say reds, then we get the recent zigzag high, right? So we create this function in few minutes, zigzag high. Then we have another one which is SOAP, then recent zigzag low, right? Zigzag low. Oops. So let's quickly create this function. So how do we get this function? What we do is, so we need to look through all the zigzag buffer. So you can see that when the zigzag have a particular high or a particular low, it usually have a value because this is forming, so it's always have a value. Well, not always, but you can see this does not have a value because it is not considered as a high or a low, but this has a value. You can see here it has a value, and this also it has a value because it is considered as a low or the high. And this, when the zigzag pick up a low, the low is usually equivalent to the low of that particular candle, and you will notice there's a match between this and this. So you can see, and for the high, you can see the high matches the value, so you can see this as well. So here you go, and this as well, you can see. So now that means we are going to look through all the zigzag. So what we do is, once we hit the first zigzag, we ignore it because we know that it is still forming, it is not yet finalized. So we ignore the first zigzag value we come across. Then after noting that, oh, we've ignored the first value, what we do is the next one we pick it up. If the next one is a high, then we return the index of that that part where we notice that there is a zigzag high. And in the part where we are looking for, in the function where we are looking for the recent zigzag low, after going through, when we are going through the zigzag and we realize that this is the first zigzag, right, we ignore. Then where can we find a zigzag low? This is a zigzag high, so we are not interested in this. Then this is the zigzag low. But of course, we'll be doing this on the higher time frame. And you can see that even when we called the handle, the zigzag handle, using the high costume, we gave time frame of the higher time frame. So this is what I mean. You can see we gave the higher time frame. We'll be looking zigzag on the higher time frame, right? So that is that. So now let's quickly write this function so that it will become clearer. So now what we'll be doing is, first, like I said, we'll be going through the bars. So we say bars, right? Bars. So for this chart symbol and the higher time frame, so we want to get the number of bars. So we won't be looping through, of course we won't be looping through everything, but we just want it to be our our range, even if we won't be looping through half of it, but we just want it to be our range. So now we want to also store if we've seen the first one or not. So we say boolean latest seen. So if we've seen the latest one, we want to set this to true in the loop, but by default it is false, right? Now let's have our zigzag values. So We want to store it here. We say copy buffer and do this, right? Now the buffer is 0. So you can see it even have just one value on the buffer. So the buffer is 0, and we'll be starting from 0, right? Then how many do we want? You know what? Just give us the whole number of bars available. Now, what next? Where do you want to store this buffer? We want to store it in this zigzag array, right? Then we want to set it as series. So zigzag array, then we say true. We can go through our loop starting from the index 1, which is the fully formed bar. So we can say starting from index 1, then ending at this. So increment, right? So in the case where we do not see anything, so just return negative. This is most likely not going to happen, but you know, even if we know that it is most likely not going to happen, we still need to return something, an integer, because we already have this function expecting an integer, right? So now, the next thing we need to do, since we are comparing the zigzag value with the high, so we need to get the current high for this bar that we are currently on if we are going from right to left. So we can say this on the higher time frame, right? Then for this I. So now, if the I for the bar we are currently working on and is equal to the zigzag, that means the zigzag value have a value. This zigzag is either a high or a low. It has a value. That is what I mean there. And we've not seen the latest. We've not seen the first one. So let's say this is the first one, meaning the latest is false. So what we want to do is we want to say the latest has been seen. So we set it to true, then we avoid going down. So we just say after seeing the latest one, just skip to the next one, because we don't want any logical error. We don't want to look forward. So we just want to mark that, oh, we've seen the latest zigzag, the forming one, the one that has not been finalized. Then once you've seen it, just move to the next one. Now, so after that, we want to say if yes, the latest has been seen, right? And now we have a zigzag that is the high, right? So what do we want to do? We want to return that index, that bar index. So that is what we mean there. So now we can go ahead for recent zig low. So similar thing. So we can just say bars, can just say bars, I bars. Yeah. Oops, we don't need this. So we also check if we've seen the latest so that you avoid something that has not been finalized, right? So you know what? Let's just copy this. Let's copy this. Now let's enter the loop. If I equals 1, so we are starting from index 1. So now this, we get the low. We are interested in the low, right? I time frame, right? Yes. If the low is equal to the zigzag, value, that means that particular bar is a zigzag low, and we've not seen the latest. So that means this is still forming. This is not yet finalized. So what we want to do is we want to register it that, oh, the latest has been seen, right? Then we want to continue. We don't want to move forward with this loop on this particular thread. So now the next thing is we want to see if the latest has been synced and the low of this particular bar that we are currently working on is the same as the zigzag value. So that means this is the recent zigzag low, right? So that is what we mean there. So now that we know now that we have our values, one of the things we need our value for is the resistance and support. So we can say resistance, which is the high of this particular index. So yeah, on the higher time frame, because we are dealing with the higher time frame for the zigzag, right? So now the res, and for the support, we are interested in the low higher time frame support, right? So that is that. Now the next thing we are interested in is the MACD, right? So we can say MACD, and this is the signal line. So the MACD also, we can say the main line, right? Then we want to copy the buffer from the handle MACD. So the buffer for the MACD itself, which is the main line, is 0. We want to start from 0, and we just want, let's say, 5 of it, 5 of the values. So now, where do you want to store it? We want to store it here, right? And for the signal line, we want the signal line is on buffer 1, 0, and we just want 5 of it, and we want it stored here. So we want to set them as series as well, right? So you can say array set series signal line this. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure that there's a crossover, right? So which is when 1 is greater or equal to the signal line, but it was previously below it, and they are actually below 0, below the 0 line. So that is what I mean here. So if there's a crossover and the crossover is happening below the 0 line, so that is what you are interested in. Also, we should consider if this is happening on the support. So how do we do that? We can say also we want to check if the low of the current bar is touching the support level, the support value, right? So now let's quickly get the low. So you can just put that here. So the low, right? So you can say this on the higher time frame. So for the current bar, also we can just leave the high available so that right. So now what we are interested in is if this low is touching it and the high is greater or equal to the support. So what I mean is, let's say this case, if the low of this bar, so ignoring the fact that it is even touching it. So if, okay, you know what, let me quickly remove this so that I won't get you confused. So I'll just remove this. So now what I mean is that if the low of this bar, but it will be on the higher time frame, right? So if the low of this bar is lower than or equal to this support line, and at the same time the high of this bar is greater, that means it is touching. So that's what it means. That means this bar is touching or piercing this support, this resistance line, and in the case of support, this support line. So that is what I mean there. So let me do this. So let's see where, okay, this kind of situation as well. So the low is lower than, you know what, let's make it lower a little, just for explanation's sake. So the low is lower than this particular support line and the high is higher. So that is what makes it touch this line. So that is what I mean here. We don't just want to stick to the recent bar. So let's say it doesn't happen here. So let's say the crossover doesn't happen here. The crossover doesn't happen here. We want to give it room. So let's say the crossover doesn't happen here and it doesn't happen here. We want to give it room and hopefully it happens here, because we just want to wait for 3 bars to be formed on the higher time frame for it to touch the support line or the resistance line before we keep looking if there will be a crossover on the MACD, and if it doesn't happen within the next and within the last 3 bars, which is the forming bar, the one before, and this, we want to ignore. So we don't just want to stick to the recent bar, because it might not happen on the recent bar. So according to the video, you realize that even the touching of the support or resistance doesn't happen on the recent bar. It happens between the recent bar, the one before, and the one before, which is index 0, 1, 2, so that we won't miss a lot of trade. So what we can do is we can also make reservation for this. So we can say bar 1, 1, 1, then say 2, 2, and 2. So now what we'll be doing here is we won't just stick to this, right? So we want to have varieties. So if this happen, or this happen, but for 2, I mean for 1, okay, this should also be in this should also be in, yes, oops. Then if this also happen, but for 2, so if the touching on the higher time frame doesn't happen on the recent bar, if it doesn't happen on the recent bar, check for the one before, and if it doesn't happen on the one before, check on the third one, and if it doesn't happen, just ignore. That means it's not time to trade. So that is what it means. So now that means our condition is complete, so we can go ahead and set our position. So first thing we need to prepare is we need to prepare our stop loss. So what should be our stop loss? So to get our stop loss, we need to get a swing low for the buy, and we need a swing high for the sell. So let's quickly say nearest, we create this function, nearest swing low, right? So let's quickly write a function for nearest swing low. So now, how do we do that? We'll be returning the low. So we look through all the bars, then anywhere we notice that there is a particular bar that the low is lower than the low of the bar on its right, and it is lower than the low of the bar on the left, that means that is a swing low. So visually, in this case, sorry about that. In this case, this is a swing low. That is because this particular low, you can see it is lower than this particular low, and it is lower than this particular low. So that makes it a swing low. And for swing high, you can see this is an example of swing high. This. So you can see this particular high is higher than this particular high and this particular high compared to these 3. So swing low or swing high happens between 3 bars. So you can see this is an example of swing low and this is an example of swing high. So like I said, we've looked through all the bars. Of course, we won't have to look through all the bars before we get our results. So now we are only interested in the bars on the low time frame, right? So now let's look through. So starting from index 1, right? So bars, right? And in the case where we get nothing, so what we want to return is we want to return -1, or we can just return 0 or whatever. So now when we are on a particular bar, we want to look out for that bar, the bar on the left and the bar on the right hand side. When we are on this particular bar, we want to get the low of this bar, then the low for this bar, then the low for this bar. So if the low for this bar is lower than this low and this low, that means it is a swing low. If it is not a swing low, we move ahead, we move to this one, we check this low, and this low, and if this is lower than this and this, so that means it is a swing low. Else we move to this. Now we look out for this low, and this low. So if this middle low is lower than the two, which is not, then we move to this one. And in here, we look into this, we look at the low here, we look at the low here, and we look at the low here. If this low in the middle is lower than this and this, of course, this is a swing low. So we are going to return this particular low. So that is what we are going to be doing in this function. Oh, I think this is also a swing low. Right. Oh, this is also a swing low. This is also a swing low. I missed that. Sorry about that. But of course, the function won't be missing it. What we need now is we need to get the low, right? So the first low, which is the one we are working on, the one on index 0 or in index of the I value. So we go for this on the lower time frame and for I, right? Also, we go for this, the one below beside it, then this I plus 1, then we go for this I plus 2, right? So now, if this particular low, which is the middle one, if it is lower than the one on its right and it is lower than the one on its left, so we want to return it, which is this. We want to return it that, okay, this is surely a swing low. So that is what we do. Let's quickly do that for swing I, since we're dealing with selling as well. So I can just change this to high. I'll copy this, all right. Okay, you know what, let me type this out, but before we do that, let's quickly change this to swing I and I. Okay, I, sorry, not swing I. So you know what, let's get rid of everything here. So we can say if the I in the middle is higher than the high on the right, and the high in the middle is higher than the high on the left, right? So what we do is we want to return this high, right? That means the high on the in the middle. So I can also tag this. You can say the high on the left. This is the, I mean, this is the right hand side. This is the right. This is the left, and this is the middle. Same thing here. This is the right. This is the middle. Oops, this is the middle, and this is the left. So that is that. So now that we have the swing low, remember that we gave the opportunity to add an extra value, so negative extra. So let's quickly get that. So we can say this is from the extra Excel multiplied by the point value times 10. So we are trying to convert this value to pips. So remember, 1 pip equals 10 points. So whatever the point is, which will be automatically gotten by the EA, whatever the point is, multiply by 10 to get the pip value, then turn this into pip. So let's assume 0 was given, so that means this will be 0. That means we'll be using only the swing low. So that is what it means there. So now the next thing we need to get the target. The target is in reward to risk. So before we can get what the target is, we need to know the difference between the stop loss and the entry price, which is the ask price, right? So you can easily say XL is the ask price minus the stop loss, right? So that means our target is the ask price plus reward multiplied by this value, this distance between the stop loss and um, the ask price. Now, if the distance between the stop loss and the ask price is 15 and the reward to risk is 2, that means our target distance will be 30, right? So that is what we are trying to do there. So now that we have everything we need, so what we need to do is we need to say return this. So we can say buy using the fixed lot size given, right? Then buy for this particular pair at what price? So now we don't have the ask price. So I don't know if you noticed that. So let's quickly set out the ask price. Ask. Oops. So this bid, right? Now, this is the ask price, and this is the stop loss, and this is the target. So now, and this is the comment. So if this is successful, what we want to do is we want to say the last entry was done on this particular bar. So that means next time when we want to enter a new trade, we want to make sure that we are not entering a new trade on a bar that already have a trade that has been closed on it. So that is what we are trying to do there. So now for the sell case, so I won't like to waste our time, so I'll just copy this and paste this, but we must be very careful. So now we just change this to low, change this to high. So that means the MACD is currently lower than the signal line, and it was previously higher. So that means now the signal line is higher. So that is what it's trying to say. The MACD is lower and the signal line is now higher. And currently, the MACD is above the zero line. And also, the same thing applies to this case. But here, we'll be dealing with resistance, not support, right? So we just change this to resistance. Right? So here, here, here. All right. So now, here we are interested in the nearest swing low. I mean swing high, not the swing low. So then this, and for this, how do we get the difference between the stop loss and the ask price? So that is stop loss minus the bid price, right? Because that will be the entry price. Then we say bid minus this for the target, and for this we change this to sell, and this will be the sell price, and this is correct, and others are also correct. So that is that on that. Let's quickly save and compile. Hopefully no error. Okay, we have one error. So now you can see that the error is telling me that you are trying to you have a function that is expecting you to return an integer, but you do not specify how you wish to return what you wish to return if any of this is met. So in the case where there is no position, nothing will be returned. So that is what it's complaining about. So we should return something here. So I'll save and compile. So in your own case, okay, we are still having this error. So in your own case, you can just go ahead and say void, return nothing. That means here, instead of returning this, you can just return negative and in that case we won't need to return something here. So that is what it means. So, and for this case we still have an error here. So let's quickly look down. As you can see, this error is coming from this zigzag low, so we are not preparing to exist here. So you can just say yeah as well. Okay, okay, so that should be fine. So I'll compile. So now we have no error. I'll go for my strategy tester, and if you don't have it, you can just go for view and strategy tester. I'm very sure by now you know how to do that. We go for MACD price action, right? Then we go for 15-minute time frame. Then you know what? We won't like to waste our time. We just want to see if it is working. So I can just move this to, let's say, 1000. And all right, so I will leave this on default just to test if it is working. So I'll click on start. So now that I've started, and you can see I have two charts. So one carrying this, so you can just have this zoom out. So one carrying this and the other one carrying the MACD. So let's wait. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, even if we have multiple chance, we're still not getting a trade. Even when we are checking on, oops, we have a trade. Okay, now we have a trade. So you can see at this point, let me zoom close. At this point, it traded, and that is because if you notice this, that is because there's a crossover. Notice this part. You will notice that initially this is lower. I mean, this is higher than the MACD. So you can see it is higher than the MACD, but it was previously lower than the MACD. So that means there's a crossover. So that is why we have the trade there. So now going back to our higher time frame. So you can see that this is our recent high, right? And everything happened here, but the crossover, I mean the touching of the resistant line was done here. So if we only have this searching for the touching of the support or the resistance, of course we won't have a trade here. So now, because we gave the opportunity to check here, and to check the third candle, so, and of course the third candle is obviously touching, let me just move this. So, and of course the third candle is obviously touching this. So that is why we have the trade here. And of course the trade didn't go our favor. So that is that. And you can continue searching, you can continue backtesting from your end. So I hope you get the gist. So in addition, I would like to add break even to this particular strategy, so that once we have a position and the market move our favor, a particular ratio relative to the stop loss. So what we want to do is we want to set break even so that we will be able to protect our position. So how do we do that? So let's close this. So we want to make the setting available, so the user can turn this on or turn this off based on their interest. So you can say if you wish to use break even, so you can say break even. By default, let's leave it on true. So use break even, break even, right? So when do you want the break even to be triggered? So break even at, like I said, it will be relative to the stop loss size. So at what ratio? So once the EA is on 1 to 1, is making profit on 1 to 1, you want to set break even. Then on 1 to 5, I mean 1.5, it's take profit. So that is what it means. So that means break even at ratio. So now we want to keep an extra point or pips. So break even extra. You know what, by default that should be 0. So in the case where you just want it to be on exactly the entry price, so break even extra. So that means after setting break even, you want no extra value. So the user can also adjust that if he or she wants an extra value, if maybe for the commission or for the swap. So now what we want to do is we want to check if this is valid. If you want break even, right, then we want to select, we need to specify the index, right? And of course the index has already been gotten from this by this function. So, and of course you can see we can access this because it is independent of this block, so you can access it here. So after getting that, what do we want to do? First, we want to get the current, which is the potential price that the position can get closed at. So in the case of a buy position, the current will be the bid price, and in the case of a sell position, the price current will be the ask price. So you can easily say ask bid, but I prefer to use price current, so we can get the price current. So I'll just say current. So price current. I hope you remember this particular this explanation that's been done in the previous lectures. So now I want the entry price, which is the price open, right? Also, I would like to know the hold stop loss. So yeah, which is this. When I say hold, I mean the current stop loss. Also, I would like to know the position type. So position type, this is position type. Now, if we are dealing with a buy position, sorry about that. If we are dealing with a buy position, position type buy. If you are dealing with a buy position and the current minus the entry is greater or equal to BE. Okay, you know what? Let's get the BE. So what is the BE? So the BE, the ratio of the stop loss, right? So first thing first, we need to get the difference between the stop loss and the entry price. So let's say math absolute. So the absolute value, that means whatever difference between the old stop loss or the same, let me say the current stop loss and the entry price, whatever value it is, I want the positive form. So old XL minus the entry price, right? Now multiply by the break even at. So that means if the break even at value is 1 to 1, so that means and the stop loss is 15 pips away. So that means when the EA have a position that is 15 pips in profit, I want to set break even. So in the case where I'm like, okay, break even at 2, so that means once the stop loss is 15 pips and the position has covered 30 pips, so set break even at 30 pips. So that is what it means. If I'm like 1.5, that means when the position is 15 times 1.5, which is 22.5. So when the position has achieved 22.5 pips, then you should go ahead and set break even. So that is what we are trying to do here. Also, we want to confirm that break even has not been set. So that is also important. So we can easily say if the XL is less than the entry for the buy case. Also, we can say, or we can, what we can do is we can say this, or the stop loss is equals to 0. But of course, we are sure that we assigned a stop loss, so it's not necessary. So you might have to do this if it is a different project where the initial stop loss might be 0. So in our case, we don't need that. We can just stick to this and it will work fine for us. So if that is the case, what we want to do is we want to change the position, we want to modify the position. So first thing, we give this take then the new stop loss will be the entry price. Of course, we are expecting an extra value, so we can say plus commission. So what should be the commission? So the commission is the break-even extra, right? So commission, which is break-even extra multiplied by point multiplied by 10, right? So now, and the take profit should still remain the previous take profit. So that is that for buy. And for sell, if the position is a sell position, right, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the entry price minus the current, so we want to make sure that it is positive, right, is greater or equal to the BE value, and the old stop loss or the current stop loss is greater than or not equal to, or equal to 0. So, but like I said, that is not our case. So you can just say trade position modify this, then entry minus commission, and the take profit should still remain the same. So we can just do what? Return whatever, or what we can do is we can check if this is not okay. You know what? So that I won't confuse you, so we can just leave it like this, right? Then if this is false, also we can write it in this manner. We can say if this is false, what we want to do is we want to print that, oh, other modification failed, modify failed, error of this. So you can also do that here as well to check if it's failed. We can say price order send error. So you can do this so that in the case where there is, for one reason or the other, the EA fail. So this is it. So let's remember to put semicolon. Oops. Alright, so here you can also say boolean res, right? Then we have our semicolon. We're refusing to put our semicolon. Oopsie, the semicolon is there. Okay, so I think we are good to go. So we can save this and compile. Alright, so we have no error. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and optimize this particular EA so that we get the best out of it. So why should you optimize? First, you want to be sure if this time frame is fit enough. Also, you want to be sure if this reward to risk ratio is the best. You want to be sure if you should use break-even or not for this strategy. You want to be sure if one or whatever value is best for the break-even ratio, and you want to be sure the best value for the break-even extra. So we can also say this should be in pips, right? So now you want to be sure of this thing. That is the S of That's the sense of optimizing. So now, after optimizing, I realized that this strategy is not good. So now I've only optimized for I've only optimized for gold, and I realized that this strategy is not good for gold, or probably because I've optimized for um, H1 and M15. So you can go ahead and optimize for any other pair of your choice, maybe crypto of your choice. Then choose your time frame. Also, make sure you optimize for a very long period of time, 2 years, 5 years, And if you don't know how to optimize, please check the previous videos on my channel. So that is that on coding this. So the code for this will be available for download in the link in the description. So be sure to check this out. And I'm providing the code so that in the case where you have a better idea to make this work out, so you'll be able to do that yourself. And in the case where you do not know how to modify this, maybe you have an idea or you have a different strategy you wish to develop by yourself. You don't want the developer to steal your EA. So this particular course on Udemy will help you with that. So you will learn everything you need to learn, starting from the Forex basics. So even if you are not so much good with Forex, you will still be able to work this out, because I explain everything you need to know about Forex as a developer. Also, if you do not know anything about programming, of course, you don't need to worry. Just go ahead and go through this course step by step. Then, if you do not know anything or you don't know much about technical indicators, this course, we dealt with technical indicators. We even learn how to develop our own technical indicators. Here you go, you can see. Also, we spoke about functions, we spoke about trade management like trailing, break even, pyramiding, and we even developed expert advisors, and we had projects. You can see we have 5 projects here, so that you guys are going to get the best out of this course and end up being a professional MKO5 developer. Be sure to check this out. Be sure to check